Okay, I just got about 2 or 3 pieces of breaking news. Let me begin with this. The Senate is going to vote at about 5:30 p.m. on Nikki Haley, the governor of South Carolina, for the position of the United Nations ambassador. That to be happening at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. And now we have just gotten this. Can we put it up from his @POTUS account? Donald Trump has tweeted a photo of his meeting with Senate leadership on the Supreme Court nomination process with the Senate leadership. Let me just look at that quickly. We have that up there. All right, so that's what he has tweeted, that picture. So this is happening right now in the Roosevelt Room at the White House, and we need to pay attention to it because he's meeting not just with Republican leadership, but the Democrats as well. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell was there with Senate Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley, both Republicans, but joining the conversation, Democratic Senators, Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, and Dianne Feinstein of California, the top Democrat on the Judiciary Committee. The topic is that future nomination of the Supreme Court justice should come next week. Mr. Trump has said he's been chipping away from a list of 21 judges, says he'll reveal that pick. Who knows? Sometime between Monday and Friday of next week. Let us hear from 2 former members of Senate leadership. Former Republican Senator from New Hampshire, Judd Gregg. He served as head of the Senate Budget Committee. And former Democratic Senator from North Dakota, Byron Dorgan. He served as head of the Democratic Policy Committee. Welcome to you both. Senator Gregg, I'm going to start with you. You were not a supporter of Donald Trump. Are you, since he has become president, supporting the whole swath of issues he's taken on in just 48 hours of being the president of the United States?
Well, I think he's come out of the box very strong, and the markets feel that way too, and they're certainly a lot better prognosticator of optimism in this country than polls and pundits. So I give him very high marks, especially on the people he's been nominating for major cabinet positions. They've been some very talented people. It's impressive that he can get them to come into the government, and it's great that he's going to be able to surround himself with those types of folks who will stand up and say what they think, obviously. They're not wilting violets. They're very outspoken people who've been very successful in their own right.
We feel like we're in the catbird seat of Fox Business because we have a businessman as president, and on top of it, all of the issues he's taken on, almost all of them, whether it is energy, whether it is the auto industry. These are all business-focused. Senator Dorgan, what do you think of the path he has taken here? And when Senator Gregg says that you just look at the stock market, which is up, depending on the index, 6, 7, 8% since the election, it is certainly an indicator of optimism, at least on behalf of investors and the regular mom-and-pop investor, too.
Yeah, well, look, as you might imagine, I have deep disagreements with President Trump. And by the way, both of us have been in the White House many, many times. I've never seen a president tweet in the White House, but he does tweet. Listen, I think the president is right to talk about trade issues. I wrote a book about that. We've had a $3.5 trillion trade deficit with China in the last 15 years, I should say. And so he's focusing on jobs and trying to address some of the trade issues. I think that makes a lot of sense. I do think that when you get into more difficult areas such as replacing the Affordable Care Act, I would much sooner that they would fix what they believe is wrong with it rather than try to replace it, because I don't think they can replace it, honestly, without injuring a lot of people. And I think the tax reform issue with border adjustment taxes in it and so on, that's going to prove to be pretty difficult as well. But look, all of us want this administration to succeed. I mean, the country wants him to succeed.
Senator Gregg, what do you think you wish he would focus on next? He's talked about the Supreme Court. As I mentioned, the auto industry, the pipeline issues. He's given a nod, or at least a quick mention of the environment. I'm not sure a lot of people believe him on that because of at the moment we're looking at the pipeline starting again. But he has said, look, I do care about the environment, but I need to care about our workers and our jobs. What next should he tackle?
Well, I think he's put a lot of balls in the air, but the 2 most important ones were mentioned by Byron. One is tax reform. If you can get the rates down in a responsible way so you maintain progressivity, but you get the rates down, especially on the corporate side, so we're competitive with the rest of the world, this economy will explode, and I mean explode. Secondly, redoing health care is very important. I agree with him that the present health care system, that the Obamacare system, is chaos and it's procedurally inoperable and it's falling of its own weight. You've got to replace it with something that delivers quality at lower costs. It's a tough lift, but I think it can be done, and you got a lot of good people to help him out, like Lamar Alexander in the Senate. So I do think those are the two big issues. Now, it's interesting on trade that actually he's closer to Byron Dorgan than he is to most Republicans on the issue of trade. So that's a fairly interesting fact. I think he's going to be a fairly non-ideological president, a guy who wants to get things done and wants to create jobs.
And can I just mention, Senator Dorgan, we just saw a picture of the president from yesterday where he met with union leaders. On day one, he brings union leadership, which has been eviscerated in many Republican circles. He brings them into the White House. He serves them coffee and tea, and he holds them up and says, I want to put you guys back to work. What was that like for the Democrats who have looked at the unions as their base in the past?
Well, a smart thing for him to do, and the question now is, what are the policies? What's going to be the impact of all of that? I mean, ultimately, the president has to perform in terms of the economy. But, you know, we're headed also towards very big disagreements. He's going to come out with a name for the Supreme Court nominee. You know that it was just about a year ago that Justice Scalia died. Only 1 month later, Barack Obama sent Judge Garland's name to the Senate. By all accounts, an unbelievably great justice. He never even got a hearing. So, you know, that's going to be an explosion when his nominee gets to the Senate, because Mr. McConnell, Senator McConnell will say, well, let's get this moving. Let's have a hearing, when in fact he's the one who said we're not going to ever have a hearing for Judge Garland. So there's a lot of things that will cause some difficulty in the days and months ahead. But as I said, my expectation is most of us want our economy to work well. Indeed. I want the president to follow a prudent course on a lot of issues. I'm not so sure that will be the case, but I hope it will be the case.
We start with the Republican, we end with the Democrat. You are both friends of the program, and we thank you.